You ever walk into a place that just feels too much too big, too loud, too bright and think, yeah, this isn't for me, but somehow you keep putting one foot in front of the other? That's how it always was for me at the county fairgrounds in Willow Creek. But never more than the summer the world tried to break me and didn't quite manage it. The place smelled like sweat and kettle corn. The sun was melting the gravel, and I was just a kid Lily Parker, silent since last November, hiding behind a wall I didn't ask for. People say kids bounce back, but those folks don't know what it's like when you lose your mother, especially if your mother is a cop and the world takes her away in a split second, no warning. No second chances, just two officers at the farmhouse door, faces solemn, and everything cracking open in slow motion. Since then, my voice packed its bags and went somewhere even I couldn't reach. That morning, though, I woke up with my chest aching sharper than usual, and I just knew I needed to do something, anything, to not feel so empty. So I went straight to the mason jar I've been feeding for years. Every dime from birthdays, every quarter from lemonade stands, and all those silver dollars Mom used to sneak me when she thought nobody was looking. $52, and some change, just enough hope to feel ridiculous. I shoved it in my backpack and waited by the door, ignoring Rachel's worried voice, my mom's wife. And since everything went sideways, the only grown-up who feels like home. "You don't have to go to that auction, baby," she pleaded, her eyes dimmer than I remembered. "It won't give you what you want." But I just stared at her wedding ring, loose on trembling fingers, and waited for Neil, my stepdad, to stop pretending everything was fine. He's got that "let's move on, kiddo" attitude, but sometimes I think he's more lost than I am. The drive was quiet, the kind where every bump on the road rattles all the feelings you try to keep hidden. Rachel's hand found my shoulder, soft, but I pulled away. When we got out, the fairground smells popcorn. Hey, sunburned metal hit me all at once. Inside the barn, folks were gathering on benches, facing the little stage where the main event was about to go down. The auction for Max, my mom's old canine partner. The last thing that felt real in a world that didn't make sense. Max sat behind a wire crate, gray at the muzzle, but every inch a soldier, eyes as sharp as ever. When he locked on me, it was like he saw right through all the noise, all the quiet. He'd been living at the station since Mom died, and every night I'd sneak out, whisper secrets through the fence how much it hurt, how much I missed her, how some nights I still waited for her boots on the porch. Max never said a word, but he listened like he understood every syllable. Today, though, the crowd was here for a show. Among them, two men stood out. Vince Harding, that local security guy with billboards all over town press shirt, wolfish smile, eyes that never warmed up, and Gerald Bennett, old rancher, face like weathered leather, who I only knew as a name whispered with respect and a little fear. Both of them stared at Max with a hunger I didn't like. The auctioneer's voice way too cheery echoed as he called for bids, starting at $500, a number that made my jar of coins feel like a joke. Bidding shot up fast. Vince, smooth as oil, barely raising a finger. Bennett, gruff and stubborn, jaw working side to side. I was frozen, but when the price hit $2,000 and the crowd started buzzing, I couldn't stand it anymore. I stepped forward, holding out my jar with shaking hands, and managed to croak, "I want a bid." The room went dead quiet. I said $52.16. Someone laughed. Vince just smirked, and the auctioneer tried to be gentle, but shook his head. Rules are rules. That should have been the end. But Max, who'd watched it all with the patience of a saint, whined low and deep sound that tugged something loose inside everyone. And just when I thought I'd lost everything again, Max barked, loud and sharp, breaking the silence, breaking the rules. The crowd hushed, and it felt for a second like maybe, just maybe, the world would bend for once. But then the bidding picked up, feverish, as if it was more than a dog up for sale. Vince, calm and calculating, kept pushing. Bennett fought back, eyes burning with something I didn't understand. I remembered old stories how Max saved a lost kid in a blizzard, how he braced himself beside my mom's casket and refused to leave, how he kept Hannah Parker safe when nobody else could. And all the while, people in the crowd murmured about secrets and scandals about Bennett's daughter Molly, who blew the whistle on a company called Meridian Biotech and vanished soon after, about my mom's own late-night calls and missing files. The price soared $5,000, $7,000, $8,000. Sweat pooled on my back. Rachel's hand was ice cold in mine, and Neil, for once, had nothing to say. Bennett and Vince stared each other down, but the fight was bigger than either of them. I saw it in their eyes. Vince was after control, Bennett was after truth, and Max was caught in the middle, just like me. Finally, with the whole barn buzzing, Vince went for the jugular $10,000. The auctioneer hesitated, gavel in the air. I stumbled forward again, jar still trembling in my hands. "Please," I whispered. "Let me try." The room leaned in, hearts pounding. The auctioneer knelt, asked my name. "Lily Parker." I held out the coins again. $52.16. He looked like he wanted to say yes, but he just shook his head. That's when Max broke the crate, leash snapping, thunder in his stride as he barreled through the crowd straight to me. He pressed his head against my chest, warm and solid, and I dropped to my knees, holding on like I'd drown if I let go. Everything else melted away the crowd, the rules, the money. For a heartbeat, the whole world saw what I felt. That sometimes what's right has nothing to do with paperwork or price tags. People started shouting, some for, some against. Vince's security guy bristled, but Bennett stepped in, voice rough. "Let the girl have a dog. She needs him more than any of us." Vince protested, spitting legal jargon, but the crowd murmured in agreement, and even the officers hung back, shamefaced. Then, with the tension so thick you could cut it, the auctioneer called for a vote right there, right then. Hands went up, slow at first, then everywhere except for Vince and his man. Bennett smollate a rare, real smile and withdrew his bid. The barn filled with a new kind of warmth, a hush that felt like victory. Vince spat, "You're all making a mistake. This isn't over," and stormed out. We left with Max, the whole town buzzing, rain finally breaking as we reached Rachel's car. On the drive home, hope felt heavier than fear for the first time since Mom died. At the house, Bennett showed up with a box of evidence, old files and notes. We pieced together what Hannah had been chasing: chemical spills, payoffs, missing evidence, all leading back to Meridian Biotech and Vince. Max had been trained to sniff out those chemicals. She was more than a pet. He was the key. That night, thunder shook the house, but inside, something settled. Bennett and Rachel mapped out a plan. We'd take the evidence, public, no more secrets, no more hiding. The next day, we marched into the council meeting, all of us together. Rachel spoke for Mom, Bennett for his daughter, Neil for the family he was finally fighting to keep. I just sat with Max, hand in his fur, letting the grown-ups see what they'd almost destroyed. Vince tried to bluff, but the council really listened for the first time. Councilwoman Myers, my mom's friend, pushed for a vote. In the end, the council ruled in our favor. Max stayed with me, certified as a therapy dog. The evidence was turned over to the state, and an official investigation was opened. As we walked out into the late sun, the air felt washed clean, the world a little less broken. Neighbors I barely knew shook my hand, bent to scratch Max's ears, and pressed notes into my palm, words like, "You're braver than you think." At home, things felt different. Max settled at my feet, the battered notebook of clues on my nightstand. Neil and Rachel opened up, finally letting light in where the shadows used to win. Over the weeks, Max and I became a fixture in Willow Creek, visiting the hospital, bringing quiet comfort to kids who knew lost the way I did. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear my mom's voice in memory. "Trust Max. Find the truth. Don't let them scare you." I tried every day. One morning in early fall, in the field where Mom used to train Max, I pressed my face to his fur and whispered, "I missed you." The words came out rough, but they came, and Rachel cried and hugged me like she'd never let go. That's how a new family gets built, not from what you lose, but from what you fight to keep. So here's the thing: sometimes a town will show up when it counts. Sometimes a girl finds her voice again, not because the world got easier, but because she realized she wasn't alone. And if you ever find yourself in Willow Creek, look for the girl with the quiet eyes and the dog who never lets her out of his sight. That's me. That's Max. And that's what hope sounds like, even when it's spoken in a whisper. If you were there, Reef, you could see it for yourself. What would you have done? Would you follow the rules or break them for what's right? Let's talk about justice, community, what it means to fight for someone who can't fight for themselves. Leave a comment, because in a world full of noise, sometimes it takes a little courage to speak up.